Hello, Women in Aviation International friends. It's Kelly Radi. I'm so glad you're here. Today, it's our third week together, and this week we're going to talk about one of my favorite pillars of power, and that's the power of perspective. And in order to do this, I'd like to start by telling you a story about a woman named Sarah. Now, I'm going to give you the backstory. Sarah's a friend of mine. We worked together over 20 years ago, 20, and we've stayed friends through today. And a few weeks ago, Sarah was let go from her job. She'd been working as an admin at a local manufacturing company and had been there for a few years. The official reason they let her go was financial due to COVID-19, unfortunately. She knew this was true, and also she knew she and one other woman who had been let go were the newest employees, with the least seniority, if you will. And to top it off, both of these two individuals who'd been let go had both been out for some health-related reasons in the past year. Sarah had actually been out fighting breast cancer. So all of these things happened, and she was let go from her job. And she's not one to wallow. She doesn't sit in her self-pity very long, and got right on the job search and got an interview very quickly. And ultimately the interview went well, and she ended up getting offered the job. And that is when Sarah called me. And she's like, Kelly, I got offered this job. It's super close to home. It's decent pay. It's a great company. It's a local company that's expanding, new position. But, and I'm thinking, but what? This sounds amazing. And she goes, I need to talk to somebody who will give it to me straight, Kelly. I need somebody who will give me honest advice. I am torn and I don't know what to do. Like, well, give me more, tell me more, I don't understand. And she said, I just need perspective. She goes, what if I can't do it? What if I am too old? What if I fail? What if I'm too dumb? What if I don't have the tech skills? What if it's not a great company? What if it's a bad situation? What if? There was so much self-doubt. It blew my mind because I know her. I worked with her in the past. I have since been a client of her at this next company. She is smart. She is tech savvy. She's a hard worker. She gets along with everybody. I just could not wrap my brain around why she was so freaked out. And I'm like, where is this coming from? And she said, all I keep hearing is a voice in my head that says, you were fired. You were fired. If you were any good, they would have found a way to keep you. Instead, you were fired. And then, in case she wasn't building up enough, anxiety and self-doubt in her own head, she got a phone call from, a friend of a friend of a friend is how I would describe it. This is a smaller community, and word got out, and the friend of a friend of a friend of somebody who worked there said, hey, we heard they offered this new job to somebody who lives in such and such a community. We think it might be Sarah. And so she called Sarah and said, they offer you a job? And she said, if they did, don't take it, because my friend of a friend of a friend who works there says it's not a good environment, and the boss of that department isn't good, and you just better not take it. I don't think it'd be a good fit. So not only does Sarah have her own doubt, she's got this piled on top of it. And I have to tell you, this put her over the edge. This put her self-doubt on steroids and completely stripped her of perspective. And she was too scared to say yes after hearing all this, which is why she called me. And it's perspective that I want to talk about today. And this story from her just really drives it home, I think. I believe perspective is one of the most important pillars of power. And I've got a book out, and the reason I call them pillars of power is in my book, Wonderful, we talk about activating your superpowers, and we dig into 7 pillars of power. And I close out the book with the chapter on the power of perspective, because I think it's the most important pillar of power. That's what I want to take a moment to talk about today, because until we understand the power of perspective, it's really hard to tap into the powers of resilience and the power of priority, which we talked about week number 1 on the Women in Aviation International YouTube page just a couple weeks ago. It is also, we have to understand the pillar of power to understand the power of tribe, which we talked about last week, and the power of grace and the power of voice. So let's talk about it. It's human to lose perspective, and I think we need to just own it from the get-go. I feel it. Do you ever find yourself questioning your value? Do you ever find yourself letting the voices take on a life of their own in your head? And for some of you, it might be harder right now in light of the times we're living in, because when we are under extra stress, whether it's job stress, financial stress, family stress, relationship stress, whatever it is, it tends to exaggerate our vulnerabilities. It tends to exaggerate how we look negatively on our own value. And I see this. I've witnessed it. I've witnessed it in good times. I've witnessed it in bad times. When COVID-19 doesn't have us shut down, I spend my time traveling the country as a keynote speaker. And I meet with folks from college campuses to boardrooms to conference centers. I talk to students and CEOs, and it doesn't matter where on the spectrum of career people lie, people tend to lose their value at times. They tend to not have the perspective to see what they're worth. I've heard it from students. I've heard it from C-suite executives. What I can tell you in my experience is women tend to do this more often. Sorry, gals, I'm one of you. For whatever reason, what I've witnessed is we women tend to question our value more frequently. Think about it for a minute. Think of teens and tweens. If you've got daughters who are teenagers, think of how they are always comparing themselves to the unrealistic images on social media, how they're trying to find this quest for perfection, whatever it looks like on Instagram. Think about college graduates. Some of you may be recent college graduates, and the pressure of career aspirations and expectations. Think of a young mom exhausting herself trying to create a Pinterest-worthy lifestyle for her family. Think about professionals striving to attain this work-life balance. And I hate to use the word balance even. I don't believe there is such a thing as perfect work-life balance. I think by saying it that way, we set ourselves up to fail. And it's a topic for another day, but if you're going to use the phrase work-life balance, think about calling it work-life harmony. We'll come back to that another day. And lastly, another group of people I want you to think about are the retirees. I have a friend, just retired, lucky her, but she's struggling. She's desperately trying to figure out where she belongs. She knows she still has value, but she doesn't know how to apply it, which leaves her looking for meaning and feeling unfulfilled or less than. Does that make sense? And I think at times we all feel left out or less than or not enough. But the question I want you to really think about is who gets to decide what enough is? Who gets to decide it for you? Who gets to decide it for me? How do we recognize when we are judging ourselves or perhaps others too harshly? So where do we find perspective? How do we overcome the obstacles and the comparison game to find perspective? Well, I came up with 4 steps for you. 4 things you can do when you start to feel yourself kind of spin off into that lack of perspective. And the first one, get curious about the truth. So when you're feeling less than, you gotta ask yourself, is this the truth? Or is this a story I'm telling myself over and over in my head? Because we've all done it, right? We can tweak the truth, and we can say it enough and think it enough and repeat it enough that in our brains, in our minds, it becomes the truth. And it's a twisted version of it, but it's what we look at as a truth. That's what Sarah did. She knew the real truth. She knew it was a compilation of time at the company, financial due to the pandemic and such. She knew deep down that was why. All she kept saying was, I was fired. I must not have been good enough. I was fired. I must not have been good enough. And before you know it, that's what she's believing. And then to take it a step further, you could be like Sarah, and you could have some seeds of doubt come from the outside. Some truths delivered to you that you accept for face value, like she did. The friend of a friend saying, "Ooh, it's a bad deal, don't go." Well, how did she know if she didn't do the work to figure it out? And these comments can take up the valuable real estate right up here. And until we take the time to stop, get curious about them, put them under a microscope, and really look at the root of where they came from, till we do that, we can't make an informed decision. So that's what you need to do. Get curious, take time, dig deep, and make an educated decision on how you're going to respond to the actual truth. You got to give them a reality check, because you get to decide how to move forward. So the next thing I want you to think about is getting naked. I knew that would get your attention. Now, I'm not telling you to take your clothes off. What you do behind your own closed doors, your house, your business. I'm not talking about actually getting naked. I'm talking about stripping yourself of the fear, about peeling off layers of fear and doubt and perfectionism and this quest for self-protection. So getting vulnerable and naked in the sense of ditching armor and getting rid of the barriers to what the truth really is. Think of it like removing the heavy shoes of fear that keep you stuck in the muck, or removing that cloak of shame from maybe a mistake you made in the past. It's going to be different for everybody. What would the getting naked feel like for you? It's about removing those layers and gaining power by trusting yourself. It's the courage to be vulnerable. That makes me think of Brené Brown, one of my favorite researchers / authors. And she always says, owning our story and loving ourselves during the process is about the bravest thing we'll ever do. Makes sense. So that's get naked. Number 3, trust your tribe. And we talked all about tapping into your tribe, tapping into your inner circle, your advisory board, if you will, last week on the WAI, the Women in Aviation International YouTube site. So check that out if you missed it. Basically, that's what Sarah did. She reached out to me, somebody within her tribe, somebody she trusted who was going to give it to her straight. She wanted honest feedback. She wanted advice. Now, understand, if I thought it was a bad deal for her to do that, I would have told her that too. But somebody who is in your tribe will speak the truth over you, but they will speak the truth to you with love. Honesty in a loving way. Number 4, observe, don't judge. Because, the word perspective literally means looking at something from a particular angle. So if you want more perspective in your life, you have to observe it from all angles without judgment. Way easier said than done, but possible. Remove the judgment and observe from the outside looking. So to close, what did Sarah ultimately do? She followed these steps. She looked for the truth. She sought out the truth. She got curious about it. She put it under a microscope. She got a little naked, got a little vulnerable. She reached out to somebody in her tribe. She observed it without judging. And then she made the best decision with the information she had. Not based on some spiced up version of the truth that she created in her head. Not based on friend of a friend of a friend's judgment. She based it on the facts. She based it on her instinct on the real truth, and said yes to the job, and starts next week, actually. So what I hope you take away from this is that I encourage you to do what she did. Whatever situation you're in, however you're feeling devalued or less than or not enough, take a breath. Think about, is it the truth or is it what I'm telling myself? Am I twisting it a bit? And remember, you're worth the time and the energy it takes to dig into what you're feeling, what the truth is, observing without judging, giving grace to yourself as you go through the process so that you can ultimately tap into the power of perspective and take care of you. I hope you walked away with some nuggets of wisdom today, and I wish you all the best and can't wait till we get to connect again. Thanks again to everybody at Women in Aviation International. It's a pleasure to work with you. Kelly Radi signing out. Bye-bye.